Hi, I'm so glad you're here. My name is Melissa Lemon, and this is my YouTube channel, Sunrise Healing, and I'm here in my cozy blanket in the wee hours of the morning making these videos for you about anxiety, and hopefully these videos are going to help people get the help that they need with anxiety. So, um, what am I talking about today? Oh, I'm talking about getting a diagnosis. So, I'm going to call this topic controversial. I think, I want to say that sometimes people don't need a diagnosis. Everybody deals with anxiety, probably on a daily basis. um, there's a funny quote in the movie IQ where one of the guys is just like talking about how, anxiety and super anxious feelings, and he's like 90-something% of the world wakes up feeling this way every morning. And I think that's true. A lot of us do have anxiety and experience that on a regular basis, and maybe it might not be the anxiety where help is needed or where diagnosis is helpful and it's just part of normal life. Anxiety is a normal emotion for us humans, and it's part of our survival evolution and our, our reptilian brain and all that. And so those are things you can look up if you want to. But there are times when I think a diagnosis is helpful. And I think labels are also unhelpful too. So even these videos where I'm sitting here saying I have anxiety, like I don't think that about myself. I don't put that label on myself. It's not part of my identity, if that makes sense. It's just something I struggle with. And for me, the diagnosis became helpful. When I was first diagnosed with PTSD, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. And it was just like I immediately felt calmer because I had an understanding, a little bit of an understanding, because I majored in psychology, of what was going on. And I think that's when it can be helpful, is when it provides relief. If you go to therapy, a lot of the times I've heard many therapists say this, we're just going to put a little diagnosis in there for insurance purposes, even though if they were acting as a true professional with integrity, maybe they would not give a diagnosis to every single person. And so that's kind of, I don't want to call it an insurance scam. It's an insurance loop. Like, it's just a weird thing that therapists feel like they need to do. And I'm not a fan of giving diagnosis where there is not a need for diagnosis. And maybe some people would say, well, there is a need if it means your insurance is going to cover it. And that's a valid point. So, but I'm more concerned about people's health and well-being and mental state, which obviously includes our finances and how things are paid for. And so I will definitely honor that. So, but I think that's the most helpful reason. The most helpful thing for diagnosis, I think, is just for people to feel validated, to feel like, oh, I'm not crazy. And I'm going to do another video about crazy making. Like, I'm not crazy. There really is something going on in my neurons, in my energy field, that is causing so much trauma and distress and difficulty functioning and all those things. And I think that can be really helpful to just feel like, oh, it's valid. And, some people, it makes me ill just thinking about this, but some people, will accuse people of using, their diagnosis as some type of an excuse to get away with things. And I say bah humbug to that. I have a lot of strong emotions about that. Maybe I need to do a video about that. But again, I've talked a little bit about anxiety is bad enough. We don't need to add accusations. We don't need to add blame. We don't need to add misunderstandings. We don't need to add shame. Adding anything on top of the distress of anxiety only makes it worse. And so, man, if we could all just be a little more understanding of these things that people have to deal with in their lives, I think the world would be a much better place, and just have an allowance for people to struggle instead of fighting against that struggle and resisting that struggle, to allow people to have their struggles, because when we allow that, when we are accepting of the fact that people have struggles and their experience, those struggles immediately begin to ease. I call this the principle of empathy, and I do believe it is a divine principle. I believe it is a universal principle that when we can feel like we have a safe place to land, any intense emotional experience is immediately going to begin to diffuse. So, some food for thought there. I don't know that there's anything else I want to say about diagnosis today, so that is my video for today. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.